Well, greetings, Commanders. I appreciate that I'm facing the wrong way. Hello. Because I wanted to show you what this ship looks like from standing on the pad and then actually walking towards it. Now, funnily enough, for some reason, the Viper Mark III has the ability for us to get relatively close to the ladder there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk towards it. In terms of scale on this thing, I'm floating about a foot off the ground. That's as low as I can get without the camera pooping itself. In terms of ground clearance, it comes up to about here on me. So this has very, very low ground clearance, very sleek and low ship. And in terms of the height, I think the very back of it there would be at about the level of the ceiling on a second story of a building. Now, if we walk up to this thing, you get an idea of how many steps it would take to get close to it and what it would then look like when you get there in order to get into the door. Now, the ladder would you definitely need something else to come out of the ship, or a cart with a ladder to come close to actually be able to get into or up the ladders there and into the door. The ladder probably starts at about this kind of level. So you would definitely need to have some assistance to get up there. Unlike the previous ships though, the door is actually the correct scale. Yes. And the engine interiors there, minus the flaps, is about the same size as a single bed lying down. So that gives you a rough dimension of what the actual outlet port of the engine there would look like. All right, let's hop inside and have a bit of a look, shall we? So if we orientate ourselves back to where you're normally familiar with, there is yet another graphical glitch here with the landing gear. Of course, seems to be the way it goes these days. And let's orientate ourselves to what we can actually touch from here. Well, nothing. Again, the distance to the grab handles, I think, is one thing that makes you think that the cockpits on these ships are much smaller than they actually are. But if I was to go and grab that handle over there, I'd have to do this. So it's actually much, much further away. And if I go and grab the other one, I'd have to go over here and grab it like that. So it is actually much further away than you originally would think. The other thing I think that ruins the size for me is this crossbeam here, and this is a good place to start. Now, it looks like a grab handle, but in actual fact, it's probably a good 1.5 to 2 feet in height. So yes, it's a grab handle, but you and your friend could both grab it with both hands and still have room to spare. Now, what I like most about the interior of the Viper Mark III is that it looks like a combat ship. There is paint chipping all over the place. The interior is damaged. It hasn't been looked after. It looks like a 1970s Volkswagen, and it really fits the bill in terms of the feeling. Even here, the brushed aluminium has got scuff marks on it, maybe a little bit of rust going on there. It actually gives this ship a lot of character, and I like it. And in the front here, every edge is scuffed with paint chips falling. Here the DeLacy image is quite low in terms of pixelation. It's just sort of fake embossed into the front there. The emitter for the hologram here is about a good sort of 80 centimeters in diameter, very large in fact. And in terms of displays, there are a few things here. This one looks like it says MP or HP systems, maybe. And this one says maybe exit, hard point hatch with a bunch of numbers and letters, perhaps. There is a sliding indicator here from blue to yellow and orange, not sure what that seems to indicate. And this which may or may not be a speaker, potentially. The very front of the dash here, maybe some other small tweeter type speakers, and then another indicator, another small low res display, and something else that says targeting ... Very mysterious. The new material on these dashes is really cool. It's this sort of thatched, maybe plastic, and it comes in different colors here depending on whether you're looking at the gray here or the brown, but it all looks very proper, and even this close up, the metal exposed bits actually have a bit of reflection, so it looks legitimately like there's paint chipping off. I appreciate that. And here is another HP system output and the hologram emitter, which in this case is about the size of a small bread plate or side plate. And over here we have a panel with this weird chicken flesh, kind of goose flesh rubber on it, which looks okay from far away, but really kind of strange from close up. And 3 of these air vents to keep you cool in the heat of battle. Otherwise, around the side here is some paneling. Go away. Is some paneling with the Falcon de Lacy logo, and again some nice dirtied up, appropriately messed up materials. I'll have a closer look at the bacon strips on the wall in a minute, so you can have a better understanding of what those are. And as you can see, the other side here is pretty much a mirror of the previous side. Here under the dash at the front, it's just more of the same kind of materials, no greebling under here or any details of any description, just kind of the end of the shapes. So it's an entirely functional place to be, as it should be for a peacekeeping fighter pilot kind of ship. Now, there's a bit of a closer look here at the bacon strips. So they are just 4 strips of leather, and that one's not actually attached, but supposing to be attached to the wall and then strapped up into here, where you could put something behind and then yank on the strap to secure them into place. There's obviously nothing secured, so we have no sense of scale for that one, but in terms of the 4 strips, together they measure about 1.5 to 2 feet in length. So maybe you could put a poster tube or a fire extinguisher or something of that nature behind them. Here we have some just decorated paneling with some shapes and some weird kind of shiny material there on the edge, but that looks more like a graphical glitch than actually proper shine. And down the end here we just have some exposed piping that looks like it says coolant circulation, and the other ones are unlabeled, but a nice bit of lighting in there provides a bit of detail. And there's nothing really through these vents other than a little bit of floor, and the seat in this case is mounted on a non-movable platform. Some ships you'll see the platform is actually movable or on some sort of a mechanical motion device or hydraulics. Alright, now of course the pièce de résistance of these videos is the chance to walk through the doors and see what's on the other side. So as we step up to the door, it is actually on a fairly vicious angle. I would say a good sort of 10 degrees or 15 degrees leaning out towards the rear. And just before we step through it, there are 4 pipes that head here into the roof. Hard to see because they're black on black. And a nice light here that gives a bit of accent lighting to these rear fans or rear outlets. And these grab handles are definitely human-sized. You could grab both of them like this, and that's the scale of the tops of the door, just to give you the idea. Alright, shall we step through? Let's do it. So immediately through the other side of the door, let's look down, and you can see the end of the landing gear, which comes up to approximately the height of the floor, maybe 2 feet less. But certainly they could, once we have space legs, make a thing that comes around here and goes into the cockpit itself. So that wouldn't be too difficult at all. Here you can see the steps coming up. There's a bit of a gap there. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Is that the leap of faith? You're going to ask commanders to leap to get up to that section? Not sure. But there are the steps going all the way down to the front and out the front of where the landing gear goes. And over here, there's 2 large boxes. You can see the 2 medium hard points there sitting on the side, mounted upside down. Now, in terms of scale, these are about 6 feet in height or depth, depending on how you look at them. Obviously, they're mounted upside down here, so more height. And approximately, it's hard to judge the size of these, I would say maybe 6 feet in width, side to side at the front, and probably a good 12, maybe even more feet deep, probably 15 feet deep, to give you the idea of how thick they are. And you can see there from the exterior paneling that hard point comes very close to touching the external skin of the Viper itself. And there, of course, in the middle is the cargo bay that we see in all ships, just located in very different spots depending on the size of the ship itself. The 2 small hard points you can see there if I walk outside of the cockpit itself. So the small hard points, as ever, are approximately 6 feet deep and the size of a bathtub up the top in terms of the scale. So I think that the only thing that's left to do is to take this thing out for a flight. Now I'll give it an auto launch so you can actually see how the landing gear goes, and you can see that strut that's going in through the cockpit there certainly is a graphical glitch. So now we'll watch the landing gear as it comes up so you have an idea of what it looks like and how it comes into the rear.
Landing restraints lifted.
And if we were to stand right here at the rear of the cockpit, you could even, in fact, you could probably sit down on this little ledge and just watch the Commander flying around, and you would still have a huge amount of space. The width of this, I'll try and measure it in my room, so let's try this. So here I am sitting on the little edge here, and to give you an understanding of the scale, if I now stand up and I walk to the other edge of the Viper, this is where it is in real life. So you can see the rear section, if I sit back down on this one, now see the rear section of the Viper is fairly substantial actually in terms of the size of just the cockpit itself. And finally, it being a fighter ship, let's pop out the hard points and have a look and see what they look like. So there's the two sitting there right next to the cargo bay, and there are the two small hard points sitting out the front. So from the Commander's chair, if you were to take this number of steps, you'd be standing here right at the edge of where the cockpit ends, and you can see the Commander sitting fairly far back from where I walked from. And you also have a good vision here of the cannon, in this case itself, with very much what appears to be R2-D2 there spinning in the front. And then you have these extremely pointy set of antennae, I'm guessing is what they are, or sensors, sticking out the front fairly far, probably at least 6 feet, maybe a little bit more. And here we have the good old burst laser, which I'll get nice and close to this time. But here is the back end of it, and I have no hope of touching the front. It is a gigantic piece of engineering. But you could definitely sit on it and ride it like a motorbike or a mechanical bull. Now the other cool thing you can see here is, because I've frozen my ship to death, you can see a bit of the frosting that actually appears here on the outsides of the windscreen, which is pretty cool when you think about how much detail goes into that. Now from the outside it actually does disappear, but from the inside certainly you can see that it looks the business. If you've ever had frost on your car, it absolutely looks like the sort of frost that you might imagine. Really nice sort of low res but nice crystals that seem to have formed there on the edges of the windscreen. Very cool. Alright Commanders, I will leave this video here. I hope that you enjoyed that look at the Viper Mark III. A really awesome ship in terms of the damage to the interior and how it's actually designed to look very much like a fighter ship, which is indeed what it is. So thank you so much for watching, as always. Wow, that is very sweaty in there after a while. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I really appreciate it. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, show it to your dog, do whatever it is you normally do. And I'll see you in the next one, where I shove my head through yet another ship. Fly safe, Commanders.